do you say, my Facebook friends? Hope everybody's well. A couple days before Thanksgiving 2023. I want to share something with you guys. As you can see the post, there's some pictures. There's a couple of papers autographed by Tony Bennett. But I want to share how three people, Tony Bennett, my mother at 18 years old, and my uncle, my father's brother, were linked together at one point in time in their lives. I want to explain it to you because it's almost a family heirloom that I just happened to see after so many years. Let me set it up for you and explain how bizarre this is. I've always had this with my pictures, okay? It's a hardback. It used to be from a calendar, but there's a plastic in there to keep something pristine. I always knew there was a couple pictures of my father, my brother, and what have you. And I would keep this newspaper clipping of me, Paul Bartolomeo, my high school coach, Father Cox, taking my picture when I was MVP of the Newman Southern game. I keep it in here so it wouldn't get ruined, right? But I never went past that. I just would open it and just close it. But in here is a compartment, plastic, where the two pieces of paper that you see Tony Bennett signed an autograph. But let me tell you, explain how wild this is. You've all seen, and I posted that picture of my mother, 18 years old, with Tony Bennett. At Chubby's in 1951. Chubby's was a very famous, popular restaurant, nightclub, I understand. There's a 24-year-old Tony Bennett. My mother is on the left. Obviously, you can see the resemblance of me and my mom. The other woman is a friend of my mom's who she writes on the back of that picture. I got it. It's an 8x10. And she says, on a blind date, Maria, the girl, her friend, took her. You can see my mother's not happy. I don't even know if she understands if that's Tony Bennett or whatever. Because on the back of the picture, she don't mention Tony Bennett. She just mentions it's a blind date. The two guys on the other side of the table obviously are on a blind date. One of them was the date that the girl took my mother along with. Okay. My father had a brother named Armando Barbieri. His nickname was Barky. Everybody knew him in South Philly as Barky. Okay? Barky lived in Southern California for sure in the 60s. How I know? Because my father would ship me and my brother to Southern California 3 times. Twice by plane, 1 by train, to go stay the summer. Not with my nutty uncle. Blizzard had a sister living in Southern California. We stood with her for the summer. 1964, 65, and 66. But my uncle also lived there in the 60s. As you see the picture, this is my Uncle Barky. There's me. It's on Sunset Boulevard. He had an apartment on Sunset Boulevard. You see another picture of a drugstore called Schwab's Drugstore. This was a famous drugstore on Sunset Boulevard where my Uncle Barky had a newsstand right outside the door of Schwab's pharmacy. Well, that pharmacy attracted so many Hollywood stars. My uncle made friends with a lot of movie stars. I remember Telly Savalas coming to my father's house on 19th and Mifflin, knocking at the door. I'll never forget it. My father lived on 19th and McCullen. This was much earlier. The guy on Mission Impossible, Peter Lupus, he shows up in a limousine looking for my uncle. Craziness. So my uncle made friends with a lot of celebrities and movie stars. So here's what's nuts. You see this picture here? If you zoom in, you see Tony Bennett. You can see he's on location. You can see he's sitting like in a director's chair, an actor's chair, whatever. He's on location somewhere. I gotta believe These two pictures were mailed back, were brought back when he came back to Philly, because rumor was my uncle got in trouble, had to go to Southern California, and my father brought him back, got him back to Philly. Anyway, my uncle was a drunken alcoholic, okay? Tragic life he lived. He was an alcoholic. He hung at Nick's Roast Beef on 20th and Jackson when he came back to Philly. I'm assuming because of his drunken slur, and before I say this, a lot of you might have known my Uncle Barky. He hung on the west side of Broad Street, all the way from anywhere from Rittner, Porter Street, down to McKean, Mifflin Mars. He lost his arm in the late 70s. He was so drunk, he went down the Broad and Snyder subway. He was standing too close to the platform where the train is coming at a little higher speed, took his arm off. So he lived about 10 years of his life with one arm missing and always drunk. You would have thought he was homeless the way he walked around the neighborhood. So anyway, he had to be invited to this thing here, where Tony Bennett's on location. He says because he was drunk all the time, he had a drunken slur. If you look at the one supposed to be signed to Albert, it says Albert. My uncle would say my name a lot of times, Albert, because he's drunk, has a cigar in his mouth all the time. So he must have said to Tony, can you sign 2 autographs to my nephews, Albert and Tommy? Which you see. To Albert, best wishes, Tony Bennett. To Tommy, best wishes, Tony Bennett. And you can see I posted a picture of Tony Bennett's signature autograph to show it's legit. But here's the freaky part about this. Who would have thought, and again, it's tragic. I lost my mother at 18. I don't remember seeing this prior to my mother's death. So I don't know my mother's feelings about this or how she felt about that picture with Tony Bennett. But who would have thought Tony Bennett takes a picture when an 18-year-old woman in 1951 who has children 6-7 years later, my brother was born in 57, I'm born in 58, that Tony Bennett would be signing 2 autographs for that woman that he took a picture with in 1951. Who would have thought that? Is that nuts? And I just come to see it and realize it all this time. That is bizarre. That's bizarre to me. Ugh, that gives me chills when I think about it. All right? How nuts is that? My Uncle Barky goes on location of a set. Asks Tony Bennett to sign 2 autographs to the woman that's in a picture prior, years earlier in 1951. That happened to be Barky's nephews, Albert and Tommy. I don't make this shit up. It's fucking freaky. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.